welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling, well, perhaps the most examined maritime disaster ever, the sinking of the RMS Titanic.
But we're taking a different angle.
Exactly. We're deliberately stepping away from the sinking itself, our focus. It's squarely on the incredible, really textbook response of the main rescue vessel, the RMS Carpathia, under Captain Arthur Henry Rostron.
That's right. And if you're listening because you're, keen to quickly grasp how decisive leadership, that kind of anticipatory thinking, really builds a successful model for managing a crisis under, well, unbelievable pressure, this is definitely for you. We've gone deep into the sources, Rostron's own accounts, the official inquiry documents, to really piece together how he turned potential chaos into this really coherent command structure.
And the story itself, the rescue sorting, is built on this fantastic paradox, isn't it?
It really is.
The entire operation, it kicks off because of this stroke of just unbelievable luck, almost ridiculous luck, a timing accident.
Pure chance.
But that luck, it would have meant nothing, just tragedy, if Rostron hadn't instantly, methodically jumped on it with that command structure.
Precisely. That's the fascinating part, the contradiction. The rescue absolutely depended on the Carpathia's wireless operator, Harold Cottam, being just about to finish his shift. Just think about it.
Yeah.
If that signal had come in, say, 5-10 minutes later, that single chance to save those 706 souls, gone, vanished into the Atlantic freeze.
Wow.
But the second Rostron got that message, you see the shift. He goes from dealing with, random chance to becoming the absolute master of the situation, transforming this comfortable, slightly older passenger ship into a maximum speed emergency response machine.
Okay, so let's unpack the man himself.
Right.
Rostron. He wasn't some kind of accidental hero, was he? His response seems like the result of a whole career built on discipline.
Oh, absolutely not accidental. Captain Arthur Henry Rostron, born in Bolton in 1869. He was committed to a life at sea very early on. Apparently, his family wasn't too keen on the idea based on the sources.
Really? Despite that opposition?
Ooh, yeah. But he was determined. Joined the Merchant Navy cadet school ship HMS Conway when he was just 13. That shows serious commitment, Not just a whim, a real calling.
13. That's incredibly young to make such a life decision. And his early experiences, they sound tough. That first voyage as an apprentice, rounding Cape Horn, under sail, no less.
And that's a key detail. Rounding the Horn, especially under sail back then, that was the ultimate test. Navigation, handling the ship, managing the crew in, frankly, the most dangerous waters imaginable.
It must have forged his character.
Undoubtedly. That kind of crucible experience, it surely instilled that disciplined, almost preemptive command style that marked his whole career. He spent, 44 years at sea, steadily rising through Cunard's ranks. Commanded good ships, like the Caronia, well before 1912.
So what I find compelling is this idea, was he hailed as a hero because of the Titanic, or were his actions just what was expected of him?
I think you've hit on a really critical point there. The Titanic rescue, it absolutely confirmed his high professional standards. It didn't create them.
Right.
He was already seen as a very capable officer. And we know this because Cunard, a very, very rigorous company operationally, didn't hesitate. Right after the disaster, they entrusted him with their absolute top-tier vessels.
Like the Lusitania and Mauretania, big commands.
Exactly, the flagships. That tells you they didn't just see him as lucky. They saw him as fundamentally reliable, a consummate professional. His actions were exceptional, yes, but perhaps not surprising from him.
Okay, let's shift gears a little. Talk about the ship itself, the RMS Carpathia.
Yeah.
Because the Titanic was the symbol of ambition, huge, new, luxurious. The Carpathia seems almost, the opposite, a functional workhorse.
Yeah.
An unlikely hero.
She really was the unlikely hero vessel. In 1912, she was 9 years old, a respectable Cunard liner, but, medium-sized, definitely smaller, less powerful, less technologically advanced than the Titanic.
Just doing her regular run?
Completely routine. She was on a standard commercial trip, New York, out towards the Mediterranean, Gibraltar, Genoa, Naples, ending up in Fiume, that's Rijeka in Croatia now.
And carrying a real mix of people, wasn't she?
Yeah, about 150 first-class passengers, but also a large number in steerage, just ordinary travelers, immigrants, expecting a completely normal, uneventful crossing.
And importantly, she wasn't built for speed.
No, not at all. Her design, it prioritized efficiency, passenger comfort for those long commercial voyages. Speed wasn't the goal. Her defined maximum speed was just 14 knots.
Which makes what Rostron did even more remarkable.
Exactly. That's the challenge he faced. In an instant, he had to take this medium-speed, comfortable passenger ship and turn it into a high-velocity, almost military-grade emergency response vessel, pushing it way past its design limits and doing it straight through a known ice field.
The fact that it worked, given the ship's profile, it really amplifies the achievement, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It underlines the sheer force of will and operational skill involved.
Okay, so the whole thing pivots. The shift from routine to crisis, it hinges entirely on this moment of just incredible systemic luck.
It really does. And it involves the wireless operator, Harold Cottam, and this dangerous gap in maritime regulations at the time.
Right, because 24-hour wireless watch wasn't mandatory back then.
Not even close. It seems unbelievable now, but receiving a distress call was purely down to whether the ship's only Marconi operator happened to be awake and listening.
In Cottam, on the 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄, he was usually off duty by midnight.
That was his routine schedule, yes. Finish at midnight.
But the Titanic signal came in around 12:05 a.m. So technically, he should have been asleep. What happened? What kept him there for those crucial extra minutes?
It's one of those quirky, almost unbelievable little details you find in the sources. Cottam himself confirmed it later. He was literally getting ready for bed.
No way.
Yes. He picked up the signal just as he was, and this is the quote, untying his boots and getting ready to go to bed. Bent over, fiddling with his boots.
Wow. So if he'd been a bit quicker.
Exactly. If he'd finished seconds earlier, switched off the set. It's chilling. The historical analysis confirms it. That tiny, completely human delay, taking off his boots, saved hundreds and hundreds of lives.
That is absolutely incredible. Okay, so Cottam gets this message. Titanic hit ice, needs help, fast. He didn't just relay it, he showed initiative himself, right?
He did. He immediately understood the gravity, relayed the core info Titanic about 58 miles off, struck ice, and crucially sent back confirmation straight away.
What did you say?
Something like, coming as quickly as possible and expect to be there within 4 hours. And importantly, he then focused on keeping the airwaves clear, didn't clog things up with unnecessary chatter, which was a big problem back then in emergencies.
Heart move. Okay, now let's get to Rostron. The moment Cottam wakes him, gives him the news, his response is legendary. It's held up as this textbook example of crisis command. What were those first orders in those first, say, 15 minutes?
His reaction was instantaneous and incredibly detailed. You see straight away this ability to assess risk while acting decisively. Two main priorities jump out. Get there as fast as humanly possible and manage the danger of doing that.
So speed first. Order the ship turned around immediately, course set for the Titanic's position.
Correct. First order, reverse course. Second order, get the chief engineer involved, instruct him to call up another watch of stokers. These are extra men, understand, not normally on duty.
To feed the boilers.
Exactly. Feed the furnaces, force the engines to make all possible speed. That's an emergency order. Throws normal efficiency right out the window. It's all about raw power now.
But the really striking part for me in those initial minutes is the instant risk management. He knew exactly what hitting ice meant. He knew where he was sending his ship.
Precisely. He was acutely aware. The very thing that just destroyed the unsinkable Titanic was now directly in his path. So, to fulfill that moral duty, the duty to save lives, he had to accept enormous risk to his own ship, his own passengers, his own crew.
But he didn't just charge in blindly.
Absolutely not. He didn't accept the risk passively. He immediately doubled the lookouts. Posted an extra officer on the bridge specifically for extra vigilance. Think about that. More eyes, more senior oversight, specifically because of the known hazard.
It's a calculated gamble, mitigated as much as possible.
It is. It's prioritizing the rescue, yes, but simultaneously putting in countermeasures. It's the highest form of maritime duty, really, balancing risk and obligation.
And beyond just speed and lookout safety, he was already thinking about arrival, preparations, even psychology.
Yes, this wasn't sequential. It was all happening at once. He ordered the first officer, get all the lifeboats ready, swung out, prepared for immediate use if needed, or more likely, to assist in recovery.
And the rockets. That seems like a small detail, but powerful.
A stroke of brilliance, really. Ordering the ship's rockets to be fired every 15 minutes, starting at 2:45 a.m. That's hours before they'd actually arrive.
Why so early?
Psychological warfare against despair. Imagine being in one of those lifeboats, freezing, terrified, seeing those rockets arcing through the night sky. It's a tangible sign. Hope. Proof that someone is coming. It was purely for the survivors' morale. Incredible foresight.
So we've established Rostron pushed the engines to the absolute limit, all possible speed. But what did that actually feel like on the 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄? Pushing a 9-year-old ship way past its normal limits must have been intense.
Oh, it would have been brutal, especially down below for the engineering crew, the stokers. Forcing those engines meant they were operating way outside that standard 14-knot comfort zone.
So the stokers were working flat out.
Flat out, in intense heat, under immense pressure, constantly shoveling coal, feeding those boilers just to maintain the steam needed. It was physically punishing work, pushed to an emergency level.
And the impact was felt higher up, too, by the passengers already on board.
Definitely. The rescue mission completely overturned the ship's normal function, which was comfort. Rostron gave the order, turn off the heating in the passenger cabins. Completely off.
Why? Just to save steam.
Every last bit of steam pressure had to go directly to the engines. So, passenger comfort sacrificed. Passengers later recalled the intense, unusual cold in their cabins, combined with this heavy vibration from the engines being pushed so hard.
He basically stripped the ship down to its core function, propulsion.
Exactly. Every non-essential system, even basic comfort like heat, was diverted to maximize speed. Every ounce of power channeled into getting there faster.
And that speed they achieved, it became legendary, didn't it? Rostron's own calculation, based on the Titanic's reported position 58 miles away, suggested they covered it in 3.5 hours. That gives an average of about 16.5 knots.
Yes, that 16 to 17 knot figure, it became the number everyone focused on, a measure of this incredible dash.
But there's a slight complication there, isn't there, with the actual location?
There is. And this is where a deep dive gets interesting, looking beyond the headlines. Later analysis, especially during the official inquiries, revealed a navigational error. The Titanic's final distress position, the one they radioed, it was actually about 13 miles west of where the ship actually went down.
13 miles, that's a significant error. So the 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄 was actually closer than Rostron thought.
Correct. They were aiming for a spot further away than the lifeboats really were. So when historians adjusted the calculation for the true shorter distance, maybe closer to 45 miles, the sustained average speed works out nearer to the ship's actual maximum capability, probably in the 14 to 16 knot range.
So not quite the miracle 17 knots, but still pushing the limit.
Precisely. But here's the key point, I think. Rostron made his decisions based on the best information he had at the time, even though that information was flawed. The real achievement wasn't hitting some magic number. It was the sustained effort at the absolute engineering maximum of that vessel, pushing that ship to its physical breaking point for 3.5 solid hours based on the urgent, albeit slightly wrong, intelligence he received. He minimized the travel time using what he knew.
He maxed out every resource based on the incoming data. But let's talk about the ethics of that race again, because driving this ship, which was an icebreaker, at its absolute top speed, directly into an area known to be full of lethal ice.
Yes. This is where you grasp the sheer scale of the risk he took. The 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄, in the pitch dark, successfully navigated through a huge ice field. Lookouts reported counting somewhere between 6, and get this, up to 25 massive icebergs, some over 200 feet high.
25, while going flat out.
Imagine that, weaving through that minefield at maximum speed in the very area that had just sunk the biggest, most modern ship afloat. It's terrifying to contemplate.
It sounds almost like an unacceptable gamble.
Yeah.
Ethically, how do you justify potentially sacrificing the 700 people already on the 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄 for the possibility of saving others?
It's a profound ethical tension, absolutely. It goes right to the heart of maritime duty, the unwritten law of the sea. You must respond to distress. Rostron's justification, operationally at least, lies in those immediate, intensive countermeasures he took.
The doubled lookouts, the extra officer.
Exactly. Doubling the lookouts was highly unusual. It wasn't standard practice. But it was the specific mitigation for this specific extreme risk. The fact they did get through safely, despite the speed and the density of the ice, is the proof that his risk assessment, while accepting danger, wasn't reckless.
So he calculated the odds, stacked them in his favor as much as possible, and then accepted the remaining risk.
I think that's a fair way to put it. He prioritized the moral imperative to rescue above the guaranteed safety and comfort of those already aboard, yes. But, crucially, only after implementing every conceivable safeguard to maximize the 𝐃𝐈𝐕𝐄's own chances of survival. It was a heavy but necessary command decision.
Okay, the speed, the navigation through ice, that's technically incredible. But maybe Rostron's most lasting impact, the real core of this deep dive, is the systematic plan he put together during that race. This wasn't just fetching people from the water. It was like he created a blueprint for disaster response on the fly.
It really was. It was this remarkably sophisticated system. It showed an understanding of, well, things like triage and crowd control that seems almost modern far beyond what you'd expect from a standard commercial ship captain in 1912.
He set up medical stations before they even arrived.
Immediately, a decentralized, three-tiered medical system long before they saw the first lifeboat.
Okay, break that down for us, because the structure seems incredibly specific, especially thinking about who was likely on the Titanic.
Right. He used the ship's dining rooms, which were large spaces, and assigned the medical staff strategically. His English doctor and assistants, they were assigned to the first-class dining room, the ship's Italian doctor and assistants, to the second-class dining room, and the Hungarian doctor and team to the third-class dining room.
That division by class seems odd now, but the language assignments. That's fascinating. Why do that?
Well, two massive advantages. First, decentralizing like that stops you getting one huge chaotic bottleneck at the main entrance. You can process people much faster in smaller groups.
Makes sense.
Second, and this is really insightful, Rostron must have realized the Titanic carried huge numbers of European immigrants and travelers. Many wouldn't speak English. Many wouldn't speak Italian or Hungarian either, perhaps, but by assigning doctors likely fluent in those languages to different areas.
He maximized the chances of effective communication.
Exactly. Especially for the steerage passengers who formed a large part of the survivors. It shows this really advanced awareness of, well, cultural and linguistic needs in a crisis. Not just treating injuries, but actually being able to talk to traumatized people.
And these weren't just empty rooms. They were fully stocked, ready to go.
Yes, the foresight extended to supplies. Each station was immediately equipped with basics, restoratives, stimulants, things to combat shock and hypothermia, and medical gear for injuries. He was anticipating both the physical trauma and the deep psychological impact. A really holistic view of immediate care.
And this level of detailed planning went way beyond just the medical side, didn't it? He prepared the whole ship.
The logistical prep was meticulous, covered everything. Basic welfare. The chief steward was ordered to get all hands ready, prepare huge amounts of hot drinks, coffee, tea, soup, instantly available, and blankets distributed everywhere in all the public rooms, specifically to fight the cold, which was worse because the heating was off.
Right, the steam diversion.
Yeah.
And then the technical side of actually getting people onto the 𝐃𝐕𝐄 from the lifeboats. He ordered the forward derricks rigged, steam on the winches. What does that mean in practice?
Okay, so derricks and winches, normally for cargo, big cranes, essentially. Rostron repurposed them by having them rigged, set up, and ready, and ensuring the steam winches that power them were active. He created a system to quickly lift people straight out of the lifeboats.
Instead of them trying to climb ladders.
Which would have been incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for many, the injured, the frozen, the children. This was about speed and efficiency, avoiding that slow, exhausting process. A rapid extraction capability.
He also ordered cargo falls with bow lines ready and heaving lines along the side. Again, what's the advantage there?
So, cargo falls are basically strong ropes with loops. Bow lines. Heaving lines are lighter ropes you can throw. Having these deployed along the ship's side meant they could recover people from multiple points at the same time. You didn't have to rely solely on the main derricks. It dramatically increased the rate at which they could bring people aboard, which was critical in those freezing conditions.
And amid all this physical activity, he was also thinking about control, information control, crowd control.
Yes, crucial aspects often overlooked. He tasked the purser and his assistants with two jobs: formally receive the survivors and immediately get their names. Christian name, surname.
Why the urgency on names?
To get that information out via wireless as quickly as possible. Think of the families waiting, desperate for news. This preemptive data gathering was about managing information flow, reducing that agonizing uncertainty back on land. It's trauma management on a macro scale.
And managing the situation on the 𝐃𝐕𝐄 too? Preventing chaos on board?
Absolutely. Internal control was key. He specifically directed the master-at-arms, essentially the ship's head of security and his staff, to manage the 𝐃𝐕𝐄's own steerage passengers. Keep them clear of the main decks and dining halls being used for the rescue.
That sounds a bit harsh, maybe.
It wasn't about punishment. It was purely pragmatic. Prevent overcrowding, prevent confusion, ensure the rescue areas remained orderly, calm, and safe environments for the traumatized survivors coming aboard, a necessary measure in a mass rescue.
And finally, there's that one detail that seems to perfectly capture Rostron's practical, resourceful approach: The canvas bags.
Ah, yes, the ash bags. It's a fantastic example of adapting what you have under extreme pressure. Rostron realized that even with derricks and lines, lifting the very small, the infants, or maybe the completely immobile was a problem.
So they improvised.
They took canvas ash bags, literally the bags used to haul ash waste from the boiler rooms, sturdy canvas sacks, and adapted them, probably rigged them with ropes.
As makeshift carriers.
Exactly, like little slings or baskets. Rostron himself noted they were of great assistance in getting the infants and children aboard. They provided a secure, relatively gentle way to lift the most vulnerable people straight up the side of the ship.
It just shows that focus on practical, specific solutions, doesn't it? Not just grand strategy, but solving the immediate life-saving problems.
Precisely. Resourceful, pragmatic leadership finding solutions with the tools at hand, a hallmark of his command during the crisis. #𝐃𝐄𝐄𝐏, recovery, acclaim, and lasting legacy.
So after that incredibly perilous journey, the Carpathia arrives, right at 4 a.m., at the spot where the Titanic should have been. Rostron's own words about that moment, they really capture the emotional whiplash, I suppose.
They do. He wrote about this immediate, deep, veritable ache, realizing the Titanic was just gone. No sign of her, that profound sense of loss. But mixed with it was this immense operational relief. The long race was over.
But what they saw instead must have been horrific.
Utterly. A vast field of wreckage, debris, and scattered amongst it, dozens of lifeboats and rafts filled with people freezing in the dark.
But all that preparation paid off instantly in terms of efficiency, right?
Immediately. The first lifeboat they reached, which was number 2, was alongside, and the occupants were being brought aboard just 10 minutes later, 4:10 a.m.
That's incredibly fast.
And the process just continued. Organized, methodical, despite the horrific conditions and the state of the survivors. It went on for over 4 hours in that biting cold. The last lifeboat, number 12, was recovered at 8:30 a.m.
4 hours of continuous rescue work. And remember, the Carpathia already had around 700 people on board to begin with.
Makes the scale just staggering. They successfully rescued 706 survivors from the Titanic.
706 souls pulled from the Atlantic.
A truly monumental rescue. And the success wasn't just getting them on board, it was the care provided immediately after. Rostron's planning ensured the ship stayed stable, orderly. It created confidence.
And that stable environment allowed the Carpathia's own passengers to step up, didn't it?
It really did. It fostered this incredible spontaneous humanitarian response from the people already on the ship. As these freezing, often barely clothed survivors came aboard,
The Carpathia passengers helped them.
massively. They gave up their own cabins without hesitation, provided spare clothes, blankets, food, hot drinks, comforted the traumatized. It was this amazing collective effort supporting the official systems Rostron had put in place. It shows how good leadership can enable wider compassion.
Rostron's actions, his detailed logs, his testimony at the inquiries, they received universal praise, didn't they? It went beyond just calling him a hero.
Absolutely. This is key to his lasting legacy. He was very highly praised by both the American and the British inquiries. But crucially, the American inquiry did something more. They didn't just praise his methods, they quoted his detailed orders for the medical setup, the resource allocation, the crowd control. They quoted them in full in the official report.
Why is that specific act, quoting him verbatim, so significant?
Because it codified his actions. It turned his specific, brilliant response into an official benchmark, a documented model procedure. It was implicitly held up as a standard for how things should be done, providing a stark contrast to the perceived failures that led to the Titanic disaster. His blueprint became part of the official record for improving maritime safety.
And his career afterwards reflected that newfound status, that recognition. The rescue wasn't the end for him.
Not at all. It was, in many ways, a launching point for the highest levels of command. He stayed with the Carpathia for another year, then Cunard moved him to bigger, more prestigious ships. He served throughout World War I, commanding troop ships like the Aulania, involved in campaigns like Gallipoli.
And the honors followed?
Yes. His sustained professionalism was recognized formally. He was made a Commander of the Order of the British Empire, a CBE, in 1919. And then later knighted, becoming Sir Arthur Rostron, a Knight Commander, a KDE, in 1926. These aren't handed out lightly. They reflect significant service.
And the peak of his career at sea
Came in July 1928. He was given command of the RMS Berengaria, one of the era's great superliners. And with that command, he was officially appointed Commodore of the entire Cunard fleet, the most senior captain in one of the world's leading shipping lines. Quite the journey from that 13-year-old cadet.
He retired in 1931. But there's that one final story about him that really speaks to his connection with the ships he commanded. It's quite poignant.
Yes, the Mauretania story. A few years after he retired, in 1935, his old command, the beloved Mauretania, was being sent on her final voyage to the scrapyard in Scotland.
And he wouldn't go.
He couldn't bring himself to sail on her for that last trip. Instead, he went down to the docks, stood on the pier side, and just waved her goodbye as she sailed off. It really shows that deep, almost personal bond he felt, that sense of responsibility, of connection to the vessels and the people under his command. It's the same commitment, you feel, that drove him to push the 𝐾𝐈𝐕𝐄 through the ice back in 1912. His legacy, built on those decisions, continued long after his death in 1940. #TAG outro. So if you boil it all down, Captain Rostron's achievement, it's clearly much more than just simple heroism, isn't it? It really is this comprehensive model for how to manage a crisis. It combines that incredible foresight thinking ahead about triage, languages, lookouts with real technical resourcefulness, pushing the engines, using those ash bags, and just a superior delegation, trusting his officers.
And the strength of that blueprint he created, essentially in real time, was so clear that it was immediately absorbed into the official record. It set a benchmark for proactive safety, influenced international rules for decades. Rostron's response really is this profound case study in how a lifetime of discipline prepares you for that one defining moment.
And thinking about that moment, about the race itself, we talked quite a bit about the risk he took. And that really brings us to the final thought we want to leave you with.
Yeah.
Rostron made an immediate calculated choice. He chose to put his own ship, the 𝐾𝐈𝐕𝐄, in extreme danger, driving it at top speed through potentially 24 massive icebergs. He knowingly risked the certain safety of the hundreds of souls already in his care for the chance of saving unknown others.
So reflect on that stark ethical and operational tension, prioritizing a high-risk rescue over the guaranteed safety of your current passengers and crew. What's that incredible decision tell us about the ultimate nature of duty at sea? And maybe, what can modern disaster management still learn from that kind of calculus of necessary risk?